Hello, I'm Mona, your host on Soulutions, the lively show for people who had polio. Get ready to embark on a journey of empowerment and inspiration. We have episodes every first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. Eastern Canada time. Join us for the dynamic, informative talks about polio and your needs. What are your solutions? Join us. Hello, and welcome to Live Solutions number 9. I am Mona, your host today, and I would like to talk about using gadgets to help ourselves live better and have better and easier lives. Anthony Hopkins, the actor, once said, I am fully aware of my mortality, but at 87 years old, I still wake up every morning with a desire to misbehave. Age is not a barrier when you find passion in what you do. The real secret lies in keeping your curiosity alive, continuing to learn, and not letting the fear of stop you from enjoying life. Every day is a new opportunity to create, to laugh, and to show that it is never too late to move forward with enthusiasm and joy. I had polio at 14 months old. So all my life I've known varying forms of disability. I was brought up to do everything and anything I needed in any way I could. Now I have post-polio syndrome. Let's examine how post-polio syndrome affects you today. Post-polio starts off very slowly, and we don't even notice what is happening to us. For example, you suddenly notice you are at the shopping mall, and suddenly you are just too tired to walk to even take another step. Of course, this was after a long day out, but you still need to walk to the end of the shopping center and get to your car. So, what do? You stop for a moment or two and then continue to the car. Amazingly, you make it home safely and never think about it again. Then 6 months later, something similar happens to you and you don't know why. But you do get over it and it happens again. But you still just ignore it. And in no time at all, you continue on with your regular busy day. Well, why? Post polio starts off slowly at 1% per year, compounded yearly. I have polio now for 72 years, and that's 72% loss for me. And I am wondering why it's so difficult for me to stand. And well, it should be. It's slowly. We are changing, but we don't notice until we have lost so much that walking has become difficult. And we go to our general doctor and say, what's wrong? So you go through all the tests and get the results, and there's nothing wrong. That's a good thing. No cancer, no life-threatening diseases. Great. That's good for us. But I still have difficulties, and no one knows why I'm having trouble standing. Another problem with people who have had polio is that they no longer have a doctor who knows anything about polio or its late effects. What do? Find a doctor who understands polio. They are out there. Check Facebook. Now, today, I want to talk about how to try to change how you do things. I will show you a few activities and ask you to send me more of the ways you have adapted. Ch- Change is what we need to work through. Change is a really, really bad word for most of us. We just want to keep going, just like we always did. What we don't realize is that we did adapt through all those years, but it was minimal and we didn't really even notice. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Marnie Yulberg, a polio survivor herself. A primary care physician, Marnie Yulberg is a polio survivor, class of 1950. a retired family physician, except for seeing polio survivors, and is very involved in organizations dedicated to polio survivors and polio eradication. She practices in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. Hello, Dr. Marnie.
Hello, Mona. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. PowerPoint.
So um, I did a Ask the Doctor session for Post-Polio Health International, and we had a person ask a question about what should they think about when possibly considering a wheelchair. And I knew that wasn't going to be something I could answer in just on the fly and in 3 minutes or less. So I put this PowerPoint together, and that's how it came that Mona saw it and then asked me to share it with you all. Um, Many polio survivors see a wheelchair as the very last option. And in fact, I've had one person say, I'd rather die than use a wheelchair. However, most most people, once if they make the decision, then are saying, I wish I'd made the decision 5 years ago or 10 years ago or much sooner. So as polio survivors, we are a stubborn bunch, but I'm hoping to change your thinking just a little bit. So when should you start thinking about a wheelchair, and what do you need to know or learn? Next slide. So if you're using any of the following, on the left a walker, on the right a whole collection of canes, and they no longer meet your needs and you're unable to do what is important or meaningful to you. Next slide. Then certainly your needs come first, but it's important to look at have a mobility related, look at your mobility related activities of daily living, but also those that will help you maintain independence inside your home and allow you to do things that you enjoy, participate in family activities, etc. Next slide. So the short answer to the question, when should I start investigating wheelchairs, is as soon after that thought crosses your mind and or your doctor, physical therapist, family, or friends have brought up the subject, especially if more than once. Next slide. Are you having any of the following when you're using your current equipment? Feeling unstable, having near falls, or falls that happen often, moderate to severe pain when you're standing, walking, anywhere in your legs, arms, shoulders, or back, fatigue when standing or walking that interferes with your daily activities, shortness of breath when walking and standing, and unable to enjoy, participate in activities with families, friends, or for some of the younger polio survivors, do one's job. Next slide. So what are the choices? Manual wheelchairs can be a choice for those who have trouble walking, but have good upper body strength and core strength. That's through your trunk and abdomen. There are special adaptations. There are lighter weight wheelchairs that make it easier to put in the car. Interestingly, in the United States, Medicare will only pay for a lightweight wheelchair if the physician says that you don't have the strength to propel a standard wheelchair yourself, but you could do a lightweight wheelchair. I find that I often have to bend the truth, and because the issue often is the spouse or helper now is also older and has back problems or whatever, and they have difficulty putting the manual wheelchair into the vehicle. There are racing wheelchairs. There's adaptations that can be made for a person who can only use one arm. Because with a standard wheelchair, if you're pushing on just one wheel, then you're just going to be going around in a circle. Next slide. So They're what's called power operated vehicles, POVs, more commonly called scooters. They do require some trunk stability because generally the seating is not as supportive as in a power wheelchair. And they require some upper body strength because, as you can see, they all have the steering mechanism up front and at about arm height for most people. And they can come, the picture shows 3 different kinds. The black one in the middle is one that's foldable and can easily be collapsed and put in the trunk of a car or the back area of an SUV, and easily can be transported in airports. The blue one is a much jazzier version. Some of them look almost like a jazzed up golf cart, but obviously this is bulkier and would not work well in a lot of people's homes. Next slide. There are lightweight travel electric wheelchairs, which is sort of an option between a scooter and a power wheelchair. And there's just 3 different varieties shown here. Next slide. And then there are power wheelchairs. These can be used by people with very limited upper body strength because it usually operated with a joystick, but there are ones that even can be operated with puff and sip from one's mouth. They require some. They don't require very little trunk stability because special seating options can be incorporated. They are heavier than manual wheelchairs or POVs. They can have seats that elevate so you can get up to counter height, etc. Some can be adapted to transport oxygen delivery devices or ventilators. Some have custom seating. Some models can tilt and allow the user to recline or elevate their legs. Generally, these are going to require a van or some, because they're not going to fit into your regular vehicle. Next slide. So now for the elephant in the room, cost. Out-of-pocket and insurance coverages. In US dollars in February 2025, a manual wheelchair can cost out-of-pocket anywhere from $250 to $750. Insurance generally will cover it, although in the United States, Medicare and many insurances will only cover it if it's documented that you need to use it in your home, not that this would allow you to go to the baseball game. And that's true for all of these manual wheelchairs, POVs, or power wheelchairs. Has to be needed to be used in your home for what's called mobility-related activities of daily living. So that's getting to the bathroom, to shower, to toilet, being able to get from the bedroom to the kitchen or dining room to eat. In the United States, unfortunately, as far as Medicare is concerned, you don't ever need to leave your house, which is obviously crazy, but that's the rules. So POVs or scooters out of pocket can range anywhere from $750 to about $3,000, and power wheelchairs can run between $3,000 and $20,000. Next slide. General requirements in the developed world for insurance coverage. It'll depend on where you live and what type of health insurance you have. Most insurances cover at least part of the cost. In the United States, again, Medicare and most insurances require a face-to-face visit with a physician, with the visit only being for the purpose of mobility evaluation and with specific things that need to be documented and that the device is needed for mobility-related activities of daily living inside the home. Increased detail is needed for each step up in devices. Next slide. So where to begin? Evaluation, discussion with a healthcare provider, and that can be a physiatrist or PM&R physician, or PA, nurse practitioner, physical therapist, occupational therapist, primary care provider, and evaluation of muscle strength, especially upper extremities and trunk, sitting stability, deformities that need to be considered, endurance, environmental constraints. That's like, would the device make it around the doors or through the doors in your house? Personal needs and desires. And if using insurance, you'll need specific documentation from them. Again, usually a visit just for the purpose of the documentation. Next slide. And then specific to you, what kind of transfers will you be doing? Some scooters will allow you to do use a transfer board or a side-to-side transfer without standing up. Most of them will need you to stand up and transfer and maybe take a step up into the device. Will you need custom seating? If so, then you need to talk to the vendor about whether that's available with the type of device you're looking at. Are there any? Are you going to need special features such as ability to not evaluate? That should be elevate the seat, to tilt back, or to have your legs elevated. And equally important, but not often considered by vendors and health, is how will you feel being seen using the device? My sister is also a polio survivor, and she, in the last year, looked at and ultimately bought a power-operated vehicle to allow her to go long distances and travel, which she loves to do. But she would not even sit in any of the power-operated vehicles that looked like a wheelchair. They had to look more like a scooter. Will the device allow you to access all the important areas of your home? So consider door width, turning radius. How will you be able to get out of your home using the scooter or wheelchair? You will need a ramp of some sort. Obviously, scooters and wheelchairs don't easily go up and down stairs, although there are a few newer ones that can. This is important, especially in case of an emergency, such as a fire, and especially if you live alone and won't have any assistance. Consider how the device will be transported. Can it be loaded into your current car? Will you need some sort of lift? Will you need a van with a ramp? It also will be a consideration when using some public transportation of whether they have the appropriate tie downs. What about repairs? Can it be done in your home, or will they take it away to some facility? And what will you do when the device is in the shop? What is your backup plan? Or do they have loaners available? Next slide. Sometimes in the United States, it might be almost cheaper to pay out of pocket. You'll likely have more choices. You don't have to meet the requirement that your needs are so great as to need to use the device inside your home. Vendors are more than happy to just sell you the product without all that paperwork, because insurance is not an issue and they don't have to deal with the insurance regulations. Also, they can do it more cheaply than the companies that have to deal with all the insurance regulations, because it costs money to be a certified vendor for the insurances, and there's just extra staff for all the paperwork. Next slide. Is that it? There we go. So I hope this is helpful. The reality is that if you suddenly need a wheelchair, then what you would like, or the what will be optimal for you may not be available, and you may have to go with what's available at the time. So thinking in advance, looking at what you would really like and what would work for you, pays off, and requires some advanced planning, if at all possible.
Yes. Thank you very, very much, Marnie. This is exactly what we need to hear. My family physician told me when I first was discovered that I had post-polio, he said, get yourself an electric wheelchair. I'll sign the papers, get it now, and you will walk 10 years more. Well, it's 40 years later. And you know what? I can still walk. Not like I used to, not how I used to, but I can still walk. And you know what I've discovered is the most important thing is that I can stand. That as long as I can stand, I will be able to get around. So I can stand to get in my wheelchair, I can stand to get in my scooter, and I have a good life. And this is what we want to do. And Marnie, your ideas are just perfect. I want people to listen to it, come back, listen to our tape again. This is really important in ways to change our attitudes. Polio has changed. We have changed. It's time for you personally to change. Thank you so much, Marnie. I really appreciate that you came in. Hearing your speech again is just a good eye opener, and I hope that it's an eye opener for everyone else here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, here we are trying to decide what we need to do. So let's try, instead of running, let's try to sit for polio. Let's use that as our slogan. Let's sit for polio. And the other thing I've discovered, please help me. I need handicap lessons. Handicap lessons, yes, something I never really learned, and now I need to know. Are you having trouble walking, but you can still stand? Let's work together to find those solutions. And I would like to present Sandy's video on how she uses her bathroom. It's a big eye opener. And Sandy used to walk. She used to use crutches and braces just like we always did. Now she uses a wheelchair most of the time. She can still stand, and that's why I asked her to make a video. She can stand as long as there's a bar to hold on to. Ken, Sandy's videos.
Around my toilet, and as you will see in a few minutes, in my shower as well. I use this power wheelchair, and for the sake of the video, I'm not going to get up as close as I usually do so that you can see how I use my bars. First, I turn off my remote for safety, and so this is how I maneuver. C-bar here, I grab it, then I grab this bar here to turn around, and then here, then I will grab onto one of my arm rests, and then I grab here, and then I sit down. I do my business. Oh, sorry guys. And then to get up, grab this one up here. This is long because when I was able to, I could grab down all here and clean my toilet. Now I'm not able to do that, so it's useless, but this is not. This is, it is crucial. So then I'm going to get up. And then I grab this bar, and then usually my arm of the wheelchair here. Wash my hands, dry towel, and then get back into my chair. And there I am. And then somewhere, there it is. And I have to get myself back. I cannot shimmy. So that's how I use all of those bars here to keep me safe so I won't fall. And we're going to stop now, and I'm going to show.
Very interesting.
Accessible for my wheelchair. Sandy's going to take a shot of it. And then I'm going to go up against it before I show you what I do in the shower. Okay. Okay. On days when I don't have a shower, I wash up at the sink, sitting on my walker. For me, it's still safe that I can do so. So when I'm in my wheelchair, I can bring my chair up till my knees hit this. As you can see, I can see in the mirror sitting down. I can also see when I stand up. So a person in the household who doesn't need a chair, that they can still see in the mirror without having to adjust it. Because oftentimes when a person who stands uses the mirror, they forget to fix it so that the person in the chair can see it when next they need to use it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you getting into my shower. Sandy, if you would come in, we'll close the door and we'll proceed from there. Okay, this can go down there. Okay, I put my walker as close as I can. Make sure the brakes are on. Hitch up my jeans so that I don't step on them. Okay, you probably should come over here, Sandy. Okay, so then grab onto this bar, put my foot over, and grab onto this one. Can you see? Okay?
Yep.
Okay. And here, hitch up my pants. Now I grab this one, and then turn. Grab this one to sit down. This is a very sturdy shower chair. And then have my shower. I'm ready to come out. Grab onto here, grab onto this one. And there we go. then turn around. Here. Okay. Have to take a breath. Alrighty, and here, and here, here, grab onto here, there, and then here, and this. All of the bars in my bathroom are secure. The ones in other homes are not. I would, if I grabbed onto one, I would be on the floor because I cannot take steps on my own anymore, and I lean heavily when I lean. That's why even at the sink, the side, the bar there, if I need to grab it, I know I can grab it and it won't fail me. So I hope this is helpful to you guys. We have to be safe. When we fall, it's a disaster. And I am determined to be able to live in my home for as long as I can. And to do that, I'm making sure that I am safe. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Yes, Sandy. Sandy was a legal secretary for many years. She is a mother of a grown daughter and a polio Zoomer. She became my friend and confidant over the last 4 or 5 years now that we've been on Zoom. And it's really, really nice to see people who have the same needs as I have the same abilities as I have, and have changed the way we are. Sandy was a walker, and now she's a sitter. And I think that we have to learn from this, and we will learn from this. We have learned from this. Thanks for you, Sandy, and others, and how we've changed. Now I have a small PowerPoint of my own. Yes. For me, I have a hobby that I love, and it keeps me happy at the most difficult of times in my life. We need to do activities which make us happy. We need to be in our homes, and if Medicare only covers us for in the house, then be happy in your house. We do need these activities, and that is the real meaning of life. So when I started having trouble sewing, which is a thrill of my life, I had to look at ways to adapt. After many trials and efforts, I spoke to an occupational therapist, and she helped me understand what I wanted to do and how to make it easier for myself. This is slide number 1. Here is a picture of my work table that's coming. Slide number 2. This is the device which I found on Amazon, and it works really great. Next slide. How it adjusts and how it holds your arms. Next slide. This is how you look at it. Check out the Amazon. It's on the link. Next slide. How to sit at the table, especially now that we're Zoomers, we need to have it connected to our table so that there is no pressure on your arms or your back. Next slide. Here is my work table. This is the device on my work table. I put my arms on these holders, and I can move with ease about the table without lifting my arms. And this makes it possible for me to use the computer and also to sew again. Next slide. Here I am at my table. This is a small, very similar to a hospital table, but it allows me the ability to go from my beads to my work table, to put the beads in and to slide my arms across. This is a gadget that we need for whatever it is you're doing. If you're knitting, if you're crocheting, if you're making puzzles, all of these activities are important. It's also good for reading books. You tell me, write me and tell me what kind of hobbies you have that make your life better. My hobbies make me happy. To be happy is really the most important thing in living a good life. Next slide. There's my table again with me sitting there. You see my arm moving from one place to the next. Next slide. These are a couple of other items that I have found over the years. This is a Dyson non-slip material. You can get it through Amazon. It's a very good non-slip item. If you're using it in your bathroom, this is the type to use. If it's not in your bathroom and it's not weight dependent on you moving around, you could get something similar at the dollar store, but make sure that you're secure. That's all that counts. Next item. A bed ladder. I use it in my bed. I can use it in my water bed. I can use it in the electric bed. What it does is it helps me to move my arms. A lot of these things are trunk mobility. Some of us don't have trunk mobility. We have to find other devices. Next item. Leg lifter. Sometimes we're sitting and we can't lift our leg. Lifting our legs, you used to be able to do it with your arms. You would bend down and you could lift your leg. But sometimes, and in the future, it hasn't worked. This again is something you can find on Amazon. Check out the occupational therapy items on, on Amazon. There are many. Next slide. In the kitchen, if you're having trouble reaching the tap, get one that moves. You just put your hand near it and it'll turn on, it'll turn off. You can adjust the water to come out every time at a medium weight, and then you can use it, whether it's for dishes or just washing your hands. Next slide. This is a rubber mat. I did buy this at the dollar store. It's rubber mesh, and I put it on my scooter, and it stops me from slipping, and it stops me from having to lift myself up every few minutes. I just put it down. If it's uncomfortable, you add a towel, or your slacks are fine. You don't slip out of your chair. Next item. My kitchen. There is an equivalent of those hospital tables. What I do is I have a very small kitchen, which is an advantage. So I have this table. I put my food on it. If I want to cut onions or peel potatoes, I put them on this tray, and then I can move it anywhere in the kitchen or outside of the kitchen and do the work, bring it back to the kitchen, rinse off the vegetables, and continue on with the kitchen. My stove is a regular height. I have to pull myself up like you saw Sandy pull herself up. Eventually, I'll have to get something different for my kitchen, but right now I can still pull myself up. Next slide. My electric sofa chair. It's a godsend. This is when I get into my chair, it's lifted up and I can just sit down. Next slide. When I'm reclining, the back goes down, the legs lift up. I use my Rojo cushion to keep my bottom comfortable. And there I am with my remote for my electric sofa chair and also my remote for my TV. Behind you, you'll see some of my beads, and that's where I collect my beads. Next slide. Items like this, I can send you the information. There's the easy sit. There's a knee brace sleeve. Next slide. Swivel shower chair, top carrier, foldable manual wheelchair, compression knee highs, and so on. Next slide. This one is very good, and a physiotherapist told me about it. It takes pressure off of your shoulders, and it's the smart crutch. You put your arm in it, and you can hold on to the crutch with just your hand. Your arm is resting down on it. It has a bit of a cushion, and you can walk easier. Next slide. Well, these are a few gadgets. They make my life easier, and they will make your life easier. And there's nothing wrong with making your life easier. It's about time. We always did the hard side. Now let's do the easier side. Write to me, and I will give you these different informations, and you send me your gadgets. The best way to achieve the impossible is to believe it's possible. Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou. Very great words. I have another question. How are you? It's a deceptively hard question. I found a personal perspective. An honest answer means holding both struggle and joy. Abigail Fagan wrote this review, and I'd like to show you a few key points. Acknowledge what's hard, but don't let it blot out the good. Embrace your stubbornness gladly, because life is always more than just one thing. Presence. Movement, nature, community widens our aperture. It is a deceptively simple question. How are you? We hear it a dozen times a day and often answer by autopilot. Fine, good, can't complain. Or maybe we offer a knowing sigh, alluding to the latest news. But the more I think about the question, the more complicated it seems. How am I? Lately, my answer changes by the minute. Some moments, I feel wonderful, grateful for the people in my life, for the resilience I've built, for the small joys that still find me. At other times, I feel the weight of uncertainty, fear, and grief. Working had given me meaning, purpose, and identity. And yet, despite all that, I also feel something else, gratitude. Gratitude for my colleagues, my Zoom friends, my home people, for the sense of purpose we've all shared. And now, outside of work, my life is full of connection. A thriving polio community, friends who check in on me, a mostly healthy body. So, how am I? I'm frustrated. I'm tired. I'm grateful. I'm alive. And maybe you feel that way too. Both things can be true. The question, how are you, boils down to attention. And sometimes that's just where we are. But as a favorite meditation teacher says, suffering is not the end of the story. Yes, I feel uncared for. Yes, the future seems uncertain. And also, it's a shift in attention, a way to acknowledge what's hard without letting it eclipse what's good, a way to embody that two things can be true: love and letting go. Nowhere is this more evident than in love. Recently, my friend is out of a relationship, and recently she met up with her ex for the first time. They talked like old times, and she felt so much love and so much tenderness. It was beautiful, and it was painful. Maybe you felt it too, that strange mix of heartbreak and love, grief and gratitude. endings and new beginnings, exhaustion and renewed purpose. That's post-polio syndrome. Stubborn gladness in a difficult moment. In his beautiful poem, A Brief for the Defense, Jack Gilbert calls for stubborn gladness, choosing to love the world anyway, not as denial, but as defiance. And here's his poem. If we deny our happiness, resist our satisfaction, we lessen the importance of their withdrawal. We must risk delight. We can do without pleasure, but not delight, not enjoyment. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. Thank you for this poem. This feels especially urgent right now. It's easy to let life consume everything, to feel like joy is irrelevant or even irresponsible. If we let despair take over, we give in to power. We let it win. As Gilbert writes, to make injustice the only measure of our attention is to praise the devil. So, how do we hold both the struggle and the joy, the grief and the gratitude, so that when we're asked, how are you? Do we have a fuller answer? We can do that. Simply, one, let's set some time limits for dwelling on the hard things. You're asked, how are you? You might just try and focus on something else. The book you're loving, the perfect cup of coffee, the friend you had a catch up with. Not to ignore the hard things, but to remind yourself they aren't the only things. Number two, to make space for gratitude, even for the small stuff. Well, the small stuff is important. The more I remember the good, the easier it is to see. When someone asks, how are you? The hard stuff remains, but you might find more joy too. The third idea, do things that pull you into the present. A global community, which I'm part of, pulls me out of my own head. It's more than a workout. It's about showing up and cheering each other on. Maybe you felt it too. A book club or a regular coffee date with a friend. Maybe nature reminds you that the world keeps turning, or you lose yourself in pottery for hours or beadwork. Whatever it is, grounding yourself in the now can help you see beyond the thoughts. How am I? And how are you? I'm well, actually. Not because life is perfect, it's far from it, but because I'm alive. Not just getting through the days, but feeling the day, the joy and the heartbreak, because I'm not numb. And the pain means I'm alive and I care, because I'm not alone in my commitment to making things better. So maybe today, when someone inevitably asks you, how are you? Take a moment longer before responding. Consider the struggle and the small miracles. Maybe fine or hanging in there is all you can muster, but maybe you can see beyond the difficulties and notice something else too. A song that made you smile, a child's goofy grin, the fluff of a pet, that someone let you merge into traffic, that iguanas exist, that even in loss and uncertainty, we can turn towards each other with kindness, action, hope, and perhaps with stubborn gladness. Thanks to my guests. Ask me anything to help you understand your changing abilities. Write to me anytime. This is my email on the screen. Ken, I want to thank you all. Dr. Marnie, you are a treasure. We adore you. And those that can see you with polio problems are welcome. And we need your answers at all times. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sandy, my good friend, for showing us how easy it is for you to use the bathroom. Today, it's easier. When you were changing in your abilities, you didn't know what to do. Now you figured it out, and it's time for us to figure it out. Use that cane if you need it. Use that walker when you need it. Use that wheelchair. It's a lifesaver. And there is nothing better than your life and your life living. I want to say thank you to everyone. This has been a marvelous Soulutions talk. Please write to me, tell me your suggestions, and thank you. Thank you for being here.